Lover's Pentacle, Chapter 12, Five of Clubs. When Bruno came to sit beside her, Karina said, I know this man. This seat is taken. Bruno looked at the chair where the thin man was sitting, and Bruno's mask dropped and his face showed genuine surprise and concern. Karina showed the menu to the thin man, and the waitress came, and she said all about the thin man. I need one more glass of water, said Karina, pointing to the thin man. And she then said to Bruno, this is the man I keep seeing in all my nightmares, and are you one of my father's patients? The thin man opened his mouth and he spoke, but for some reason Karina wasn't able to hear what he said. And she turned to look at the menu and she said, What am I going to have? Excuse me, waitress, there's something wrong with my menu. The waitress asked, What is the problem? The letters are too blurry and I can't make out what is written here, said Karina. Forget it. I'm just going to order the usual, and my companion here is going to have water, said the thin man in a hoarse voice. Karina pushed the water closer to the thin man, and then he said, I can't lift my arms. Karina, water. Karina lifted the glass and she brought it close to the thin man, and the man drank his water, and as he did, his hair began to grow back, and even his hollow cheekbones began to get filled up. And Karina, alarmed, said, Am I the only one who's seeing this? No, this can't be real. Bruno, concerned, placed his hand on Karina's shoulder, and she turned her head before screaming into his face. Ah! Her scream was echoed by Alexia and Jack, that were totally freaked out by Karina's sleepwalking episode. Jack alarmed called Unla, and he described to her everything he had seen. And Unla very calmly explained that Karina used to suffer from sleepwalking episodes when she was wee small. The food arrived, and Karina frowned when she saw that she had ordered 2 meals for herself. She didn't remember falling asleep, and for her sleepwalking episode, the only thing she could recall was that the same man was very thirsty. I keep telling you, this same man is your father, Karina, reasoned Bruno. Due to his illness, it makes sense that he lost a lot of weight before passing on. It is a possibility, said Karina, smiling sadly. Take this extra meal, for instance. My father always ordered the snapper with yellow rice instead of rice and beans. And when I was small, I would only order for myself chicken tenders and french fries, and sure enough, I ordered chicken tenders for myself. Karina looked at her plate with the baby food, and as an adult she was completely bored of chicken nuggets, though when she tried it again after not eating it for so long, she found herself enjoying it. The extra fish dinner was shared among everyone. With the weird moment in the past, the party attempted to recover the good mood, and those assembled talked about movies and books in order to ward away the dreary silence. At a certain point, Alexia remembered something funny that Jack said, and he asked the pertinent question. Do you really sleep with a man, Mr. Sanson? I was playing truth or dare with my bandmates, and I chose dare, said Jack. And what happened to your band members, Daddy? Asked Kain. After we broke up, Salazar returned to school, and now he runs a small bistro somewhere in Kentucky. Alex tried to make it on his own, but he failed miserably, so he hung himself, and our lead singer, Carabina, crashed and burned spectacularly, so much so that he didn't survive his accident. And our drummer, who was also the good songwriter, got killed by a sicario, explained Jack. Of our motley crew, Salazar is the only one who was able to return to the real world and make something of himself. He sends me a postcard once a year. Why did the band break up? Asked Alexia. You don't have to answer that, Father, said Kain, and do not forget that Alexia is a reporter. I don't care what he writes about me, said Jack. My band broke up because of money, and since my father was better a negotiator, I always got paid more than my peers. My so-called friends didn't know, and even I didn't know because my father managed all of my finances, and even in death he still controls what is left of my small fortune, which is evenly split between me and all of my siblings, and on Christmas we all get $500. Doesn't seem fair, said Alexia. You work really hard, and now others get to profit from it. My brothers and sisters took care of me when I fell ill, so they deserve their little Christmas bonus, mused Jack. Alexia continued with his interview, nitpicking every aspect of Jack's life. Jack answered with the cool disdain of someone who isn't ashamed of the life he led. And at a certain point, Alexia asked about Kain's mother, Bella, whose name in Hebrew means devouring. All that Bella had to do was look after the baby, and most of the time she was relegating her responsibilities to my parents, said Jack, pointing to his son Kain. And I didn't demand from her fidelity, and I didn't tell her what to do, and I didn't force her to work, and I paid for her education. and I even bought her the stupid castle she wanted, and nothing ever I did was enough for that monster. But do you make her feel loved? Asked Karina. I didn't make her feel loved because I didn't love her, and I didn't even like her as a friend. And then when she knew this, and she still agreed to the sham marriage, where her only responsibility was to love the baby, and she couldn't even do that one simple thing properly, protested Jack. Maybe she suffered from postpartum depression, said Karina, playing devil's advocate. If she was unhappy, she hid it well, said Jack, and she was smiling when she was spending my money, and she was happy when she would go with her friends, but I grew weary of the topic. Did Mom have a family? Asked Kain. She did, but I never cared enough to know them, and they never cared enough to know you, son. And they shoved Bella at us as if it was our responsibility that she was now damaged good, said Jack, remembering the past bitterly. Well, you did knock up the woman, commented Eugenia, leaving on her dessert. I was a virgin, and she was 6 years my senior. So who is the one truly responsible for bringing Kain into this world? Retorted Jack. And we all know how women love to get knocked up in order to force the guys to marry them, so they never have to lift a finger. But enough about Bella. Let's talk about literally anything else. Dinner came to an end, and the group got inside Eugenia's hippie van, and they drove back to Kendall. Eugenia insisted on driving. She didn't trust others to drive her party wagon. And Jack settled down to sleep while he rested his head on Kain's shoulder, and Eugenia threw the back seat a pillow that she was sitting at in order to provide Kain some head support. Kain rested his head on the pillow and he dozed off. And one by one the friends began to fall asleep till eventually only the driver was awake. Eugenia from time to time would slap her cheeks in order to stay awake. Eugenia reached into the glove compartment to get a quick pick-me-up, and she opened a small little jar that had her cocaine, and she thought of everything that Jack had said, and in the end she chose to throw the metal jar out the window. Eugenia was starting to fall asleep again, and before she knew it, her eyes had closed. And just at the crucial moment, the radio station switched to heavy metal station, and at full volume, the radio began to screech, "Wake up, wake up, wake up! Grab a bush and put on a little makeup. I'm awake, said Eugenia, waking up. We're all awake, sheesh, said Eugenia, and lower the volume on the music. You're going to wake up the babies. Gosh, that song gave me a headache, said Alexia, rubbing his temple. And he added, giggling. Guys, look, Jack and Kain didn't wake up. Jack, feeling alluded to, started snoring. And Eugenia looked with a hit of envy at those two sleeping soundly, and she snuggled up against Bruno in order to continue her nap. Bruno yawned and said, I'm going to make the effort to stay awake, Eugenia, and if you start falling asleep, you can engage me in conversation, or you can just let me drive. Oh, yeah, or you can just let me continue driving, said Eugenia, starting to fall asleep again. And maybe we should just crash in my house if we try to... With this plan, Eugenia drove to her mansion, and when she entered the house sober, her father breathed in a sigh of relief. Eugenia wobbled left and right, following the rhythms of the ocean, and when her head touched her pillow, she immediately fell asleep. Uneasy, the guests went to play hostess, and she guided the visitors to a small, well-furnished guest house. The guest house was two-story, a mid-century modern house. And Bruno and Karina took the top floor master bedroom, and Kain took the adjacent room with a view of the ocean, while Jack and Alexia slept in the bottom floor. Karina slept like a log, and she didn't have any nightmares, though she did wake up once when she heard a low moan, and before curiosity got the better of her, Bruno placed his arm around her waist to draw her deeper into his embrace. And with Karina unable to leave the bed, she settled down to sleep. She set the timer in order to wake up early. She needed to make it home to get changed into her scrub. She started work this Monday, and the morning came and everyone awoke to the smell of fresh bacon. The first person to wake up was Alexia, and he found Unla in the kitchen making breakfast. She was already sporting her doctor's scrub, and she had brought one for her daughter, and slowly others at work until the guests had rendezvous at the breakfast table. Karina informed her mother of everything that she did, and Unla gave her daughter a dream journal, and she wanted her daughter to record everything she did on the days when the nightmares manifest. And hopefully through this means, Unla will be able to pinpoint the trigger for her daughter's night terrors. And once everyone was fed, they crammed into Unla's car, and first Unla dropped off Kain and Jack to their home, and Unla then drove Bruno to his apartment, and from there they dropped off Alexia. And with the driving duties concluded, Unla and Karina were finally able to make it to work on time. Another Monday came, and weather more of the usual. Eugenia changed up her thesis in order to write about Kain's family instead, and her teacher approached the change since the Sanson sounded like a far more amusing family to write about. And Kain began to take photographs of his grandpa's collection, starting with the scenes again had in his office. Were my ancestors fond of pizza? Said Kain, holding up a torture device that resembled a pizza cutter. Don't play with that thing, said Kain, taking the iron away. You're going to get tetanus from this dangerous hunk of metal. Eugenia's wearing a piece of our ancestors, and I'm helping her by taking photos of Dad's little toy, said Kain, showing his camera. That's cute, said Kain, giving a face smile. How are things going with Eugenia? They are lukewarm, said Kain sadly, and I want to try to give her an honest chance, but she reminds me of my mother. And whenever I think of my mother, I completely lose my inspiration. Other than that stupid laughter, Eugenia is nothing like your mother, said Kain. Yes, she is rough around the edges, but nothing that a weekend over the Betty Ford clinic won't fix. Kain dug into his clutter of his statue. He found an old Polaroid of Bella, and the mere act of walking towards the table to get a better look at the photograph had Kain hyperventilating. Kain visibly grief hid the Polaroid from sight. Kain, what are we going to do with you? Said Kain, hugging his nephew. It's all right, son. It's not your fault. And when his nephew returned to his workstation, Kain called Abunla. Kain reported the latest malfunction of his nephew, and the two talked about the real possibility of putting on Kain on medication. At the end of the conversation, Unla said, I only prescribe medication as a last resort, and for now I suggest that he stops drinking caffeine, and I also recommend that he does relaxation breathing exercise once every 2 hours, and do not let him stay past his bedtime. As for his phobia of his mother's visage, I have this idea. Leave it in random places, but do not tell him that it is a photograph of his mother. And once he becomes desensitized to it, tell him that the woman in the photo is Bella. Kain immediately got on that task, and the first thing he did was Photoshop Bella's photo into a missing persons poster. And he mixed them on a bunch of other posters, and then he gave Kain the pointless task of distributing those posters. And at first Kain limited himself to placing those posters in the same block that housed the police station. And today he was feeling particularly cowardly, so much so that he didn't want to cross the street. And he noticed an old lady in a similar predicament, and the two crossed the street together, both quite thankful for each other's company. And Detective Farley, one of the few persons who did any real work in that station, frowned when he saw the Kain's nephew engaging in a pointless busy work. Farley was in his late 40s. He was overweight and already bald, and he had been transferred over to Kain's department because nobody could put up with him, and he spent most of his time either critiquing or investigating his co-workers, and the current target of his espionage/bullying was Kain, Kain's little errand boy. Farley crossed the street and he attempted to strike up a conversation with his colleague. If you want to know what I do, take it up with my Uncle Kain, said Kain, seeing Farley approaching. That is not what I wanted to talk to you about, said Farley. Ebony Face always complains about me, said Kain, and if you tell me what sweets you like, I can make them for you once a week. Is that your idea of a bride? Asked Farley, laughing. You said it, not me, retorted Kain. Instead of investigating a fellow officer, I suggest you go do some real police work. I like you, Kain, said Farley. You seem like an honest chap. Kain reached into his pocket and he turned on his headset, and instead of listening to heavy metal, he listened to ABBA. Unla had suggested to Kain that he change up his music into something relaxing in order to reduce his stress levels. And when Farley attempted to take Kain's headset, Kain ran away from his co-worker. Farley tried to give chase, but he got winded easily. And this day, Farley, that day had read the article that Alexia had written up about Kain, and based on this article, Farley felt that his co-worker wasn't mentally stable enough to continue his duty. He went to speak to his co-workers about Kain, and they all had nice things to say about Kain's little errand boy. And the war day came to an end, and Eugenia picked up Kain in order to visit Raphael's storage unit, and following close behind them was Farley. Kain opened the lock and he turned on the lights, and the dusty storage room was covered with boxes and furniture protected by a sheet of cloth. A rose carried by, and Eugenia jumped on top of Kain. I haven't been here since my grandpa passed away, said Kain with a degree of trembling in his voice. And do you feel guilty about what happened to him, asked Eugenia? A little. A lot, actually, said Kain. Rationally, I know that it wasn't my fault, but I can't help feeling guilty sometimes. I try to imagine what my life would be like had I followed the path that my grandpa had laid down before me. What did your grandpa want you to do exactly? Did he want you to join the army? Asked Eugenia, holding up a photograph featuring Raphael in his army uniform. He wanted me to be a lawyer or a doctor, said Kain. Those were my only two options. You look a lot like your grandpa when he was young, said Eugenia, looking at Raphael's face intently. Yeah, they tell me that a lot, said Kain, petting the photograph lovingly. My grandpa, he wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer. He wanted me to be a somebody. Kain removed the glass that was on top of the largest object, and it was the breaking wheel, also known as the Wheel of Fortune. And depending on the clumsiness of the executioner, death could take hours or even days. After the execution, the bodies were propped up on the wheel to allow for the birds to peck at the remains. Eugenia passed her index fingers around the breaking wheel. It looks like a broken wagon wheel to me. I said the same thing, said Kain, but Grandpa was convinced that this was a genuine breaking wheel, and the priest who sold it to him claimed that this wheel had been used to execute Saint Catherine, and when the saint touched it, the wheel broke into many pieces. I heard from my detective that your grandpa used to torture enemy spies in Guantanamo Bay, said Eugenia. Most of the things they say about my grandpa are things that nobody can prove, retorted Kain, before showcasing the rest of his grandfather's ghastly collection. Kain showed Eugenia the smaller items that included the pear of anguish, the Spanish tickler, the crocodile shears, and the heretic's fork. Eugenia, overcome by morbid fascination, photographed all of these tools, and she jotted down everything that Kain knew about the subject. The things that people used to do before the invention of television, said Eugenia with a sinister smile painted on her face. Kain looked at the time and he said, it's getting late and I have to go home and make dinner for my dad and my grandma. Did you get everything you needed? I still haven't photographed Gabriel's noose, said Eugenia. Ah, that's right, I forgot to show you the hangman's noose, said Kain, before opening the floor safe. There, perfectly preserved, was the infamous hangman's noose. Eugenia noticed that this noose had 13 loops instead of the typical 8. Depending on how the noose is placed around your neck is how quickly you kick the bucket. And for a quick death, place the noose around the ears. And if you want to see the poor bastard suffer, place the noose behind the ears. The two left the storage unit after locking up the place, and Farley broke the lock and he entered the place in order to quench his curiosity. He wasn't able to look at much. The lock in the storage unit had a special chip that called the police if it was broken to instead of opened with a key. The cops came and arrested Farley for breaking an entry, and Gen left Farley rotted in the holding cell overnight. The following morning, Gen took Farley into Raphael's storage room to have him investigate till his heart content. I feel that we got off on the wrong foot, said Gen, smiling benevolently. The time you are spending investigating my nephew is time that you could be spent in doing some actual police work. And I know that your pa got ate by a crooked cop, but if you look for corruption everywhere, then corruption is the only thing you're going to find. I can't argue with our logic, said Farley, extremely deflated. Though what you're doing with your nephew is something that I do not approve of. The kid is clearly crazy, and he shouldn't be allowed to carry a loaded weapon. He could hurt someone or himself. You are not a doctor. You do not have the authority to decide who's crazy and who isn't, hissed Gent. Farley shrank even deeper into himself, and he returned home after officially antagonizing his boss. And his wife advised him to play nice with his co-workers, and he only had a few years left to his retirement. Gent called up Unla to ask how things were progressing with Kain, and Unla said that Rome wasn't built in a day. The boy is at least communicative, and once I finish my preliminary observations, I will provide you with a list of triggers to avoid, said Unla. And are you familiar with the spoon theory? I read an interesting essay about it, and I think it can help you understand your nephew's chronic condition. The word chronic didn't inspire Gen much confidence. Gen read the spoon theory essay. This theory describes how people with chronic illnesses start the day with a set amount of energy, symbolized by spoons, and certain actions consume spoons, and once a person was down to a single spoon, a person had to consider each action wisely. And if a person didn't have enough time to recuperate at home, then they would start the next day with fewer spoons. And she also sent Gen a few articles about ego depletion in order to add to his confusion. And with Fanny no longer being a bother, Kane's workdays progressed at a leisurely pace, and he managed to drive the patrol car past the green light without suffering a panic attack. And 2 lights was a tall order for now, but he was making some semblance of progress. Karina's first day of work was extremely busy, and she treated her first patients and she did her first couple of basic procedures. And while eating lunch, she saw one of her co-workers reading a horoscope. Karina almost recommended Irina, but she chose not to, and she was still blaming the psychic for all of her terrible decisions. The following day, Irina showed up at Karina's clinic. Irina was with her youngest ward, Marlene. Marlene had caught an ear infection for swimming so much in the public pool. "You are not going to offer me a psychic reading?" asked Karina dryly. "I know when I lost a customer," said Irina, and she added, "More the pity, I did warn you against the actions that you were about to take. I would have been more inclined to listen to your warning had you explained to me the consequences of my actions," protested Karina. "You ask too much of a humble psychic." You ask too much of everyone unfortunate enough to cross paths with you, Karina," said Irina. "Now, if you are not going to treat my granddaughter's earache, I will take my business elsewhere." "My apologies," said Karina, switching to work mode. Karina examined the little girl's ear canal, and the ear was inflamed so much that Marlene was practically deaf and in extreme pain. Karina realized that there were limits to Irina's power, and she was so much of a psychic. Why was she able to protect Marlene from an ear infection? Karina applied the first dosage of the medication into Marlene's ear, and while the two waited for it to take effect, she attempted small talk. "My Auntie Barbara, that was a bit on the craft," said Karina. "Fooling around with a Ouija board doesn't count as dabbling in the craft. There's a reason why hospital sells those boards as kids' toys," said Irina. "Like any profession, my craft requires study and practice to master the basics. I do not belittle your job, so do not patronize mine." There was an awkward silence between the two, and during that time Marlene was busy playing her Game Boy. Marlene said, "I never got around to thanking your friend for saving me." "So you're the stupid kid that almost drowned in the pool," said Karina, smiling warmly, and she said, "You almost drowned? Weren't you afraid of getting back into the pool?" "Yes, it was scary at first, but I wasn't about to let the fear of drowning stop me from doing something I enjoy," said Marlene. "The floaties also help," corrected Irina. "And it allows Marlene to have fun in the pool while completely removing the possibility of drowning from the equation." "And you should try the bumper car," suggested Marlene. "Your friend can pretend to drive while removing completely from the equation the possibility that he might crash and burn again." "Had they found the driver that crashed into your friend?" asked Irina. "Uncle Kain was looking for that person for a while, but Kain told her not to waste any more resources on a pointless endeavor," said Karina. "And can you tell me who was the person that crashed into Kain?" Irina brought out her deck of cards, and she shuffled the cards while she focused on a particular question. And she drew the top card from her deck. It was the Wheel of Fortune. This card always manifested whenever she was trying to scribe Kain's future. Irina shuffled the cards again, and this time she drew the card from the middle of the deck, and surprise, surprise, again it was the Wheel of Fortune, and this time in reverse. The card that followed it was the Hangman, and the final card was going to reveal the identical of the culprit. The card showcased the Seven of Pentacles. Alright, that's the end of that chapter.